Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time.
Good morning and welcome back to history class. All right, we've been talking about India. On Tuesday, we talked about the people of the Indus Valley Civilization. The people who came in. We don't know really from where, and left. We don't know really where they went because they didn't write things down. This is, by the way, why writing things down is so important. So we have the history there so that people in the future can see what happened. All right? Taking pictures of everything on your cell phones, that's all well and good. That doesn't really help the people in the future. All right? It's why it's important to write things down so people in the future can know what life is like. All right? Then we talked about it's one of the religions that grew up in that area, Hinduism. Today I want to talk about the people who moved into India after the people of the Indus Valley Civilization left. And they were called the Aryans. The Aryans. Now, a lot of people think today that Aryan means somebody with blonde hair, blue eyes, and is white. And that's not the case at all. That's not what Aryan means. The Aryan people, they were from north of India. But after the Indus Valley people left, they moved in. Now, like the Indus Valley people, they didn't write a whole lot of things down. They had a language, but they had but they decided the best way to pass on information was by storytelling. So they didn't write things down for about 1,000 years after they settled down. They would tell their stories to their children, and their children would tell their stories to their children, their stories would tell their stories to their children. But it took them about 1,000 years after they moved in to write things down. They moved in sometime about 1,500 years before Jesus was born. And they didn't start writing things down until about 500 years before Jesus was born. So we don't know a whole lot about their early years. Here's a picture of the people of India as they live today. You see that lady there. It's the people of the Aryans, the way they live, their civilization, that still shows up in ways today. You see that woman there with the red dot on her forehead? That's held over from the Aryans. It's supposed to be a mark of blessing from the gods. Okay. So the Aryans, we don't know a whole lot about them. They had great poetry, great stories that didn't get written down until about 500 years before Jesus was born. But then about 300 years before Jesus was born, in the year 321, there was one kingdom in India that decided to get all the people. There were lots of little kingdoms in India, but there was one kingdom that came and brought them all together, as many of them as they could, into one kingdom. That was called the Mauryan Empire. The Mauryan Empire. You see the little word Aryan in there a little bit. The Mauryan Empire. In 321 BC, the emperor by the name of Chandragupta started the Maurya dynasty. Dynasty is a word that means ruling family. We're going to talk more about them next week when we talk about China. In 321 BC, he set up his ruling family and then started conquering the lands around him. Conquering the lands around him. And his son, Bindusara, took over in 297 BC, before Christ, and he started moving down south. And then his son, Ashoka, took over. And by the way, for those of you who are fans of Star Wars, that was Ashoka, not Ahsoka. Okay, Ashoka is probably the most famous ruler of the Mauryans because he brought in a new religion. Well, he didn't start it, but he was part of this new religion, and he wanted to make sure that everybody in the land was part of it. And so he wrote it down, and he taught it to a bunch of people, and he used the rules of this religion in his empire. It's called Buddhism, and I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it. Hang on a second, the airplane's going by. Thank you. I'm not going to talk about it because we went into a religion a whole lot yesterday. But basically, the idea of Buddhism is that you should always be peaceful with your friends and neighbors, and you look into yourself for the answers. You have all the answers that you need. You just need to ask them of yourself on how to live. Now, we know that that's nonsense. We know that people are sinners, and that that only God has all the answers. But the people who follow Buddhism, they don't believe that, and Ashoka didn't believe that either. But he made Buddhism the official religion of his empire, and he used a lot of its rules in his empire. And because of it, the Mauryan Empire became peaceful. And like Hinduism, he had people who were divided into castes. And again, once you were in that caste, that's where you were for life. But that was, and excuse me, I'm having trouble talking today. I've been doing a lot of these videos today, and my throat is very sore. Okay. Where were we? The Mauryan Empire, yes. It lasted for 136 years, which is pretty good for an empire, until the last leader of the Mauryan Empire, hang on, make sure I pronounce this right, Brihadratha. Great names in India, by the way. Brihadratha. He was killed by a soldier in his army, and he set up his own empire. So that was the end of the Mauryan Empire. Yeah, but so again, we see a thing that we've been seeing in a lot of the great empires of the world. There's one man who says, we all need to band together, and we're going to do that. And if you don't want to band together to make yourself strong, too bad, I'm going to make you. We're going to see this most strongly when we start talking about Rome here in a few weeks. But for now, we're going to stop and go over our questions for today. Question number 1, what was the name of the people that moved to India? And they were the Aryans. The Aryans. Question number 2, what empire was formed after they moved there? And that was the Mauryan Empire. By the way, I said earlier that you can hear the word Aryan in Mauryan. Those are two different words. They're not related, just so you know. The Mauryan Empire. And number 3, how long did it last? It lasted 136 years. Okay. India today has about 1 billion people in it. But it hasn't really affected the world in the way that some of these other civilizations have. And I think that one of the reasons that is because they were so busy working on their religions, that their fake religions, that they couldn't really spread out into the rest of the world around them. But who knows? That's just me talking. Starting on Monday next week, we're going to be talking about China and the ways that they have changed the world. They have changed the world a lot more than the Indians, and we'll see that tomorrow. So let's stop, and I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.